Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen here with Louis D'Souza. Today is Monday, August the 31st, 2020. It is 4 p.m. New York time, and wherever you are in the world, thanks for joining us for another episode of LOA Today, your daily dose of happy. And I am pretty happy, guys. Louise and I just got back from a day at the beach, which is kind of unusual for us for a Monday. But we had a great time, and we had such a good time, we lost track of time. We almost got back here late. Well, we did get back late, but that's all right. No big deal. But it was good. It was great to get out. I was spending a lot of time just being in a great place, and it felt good. So that's the way my Monday started. How'd your Monday start, Louis?
Can't remember. How did it start?
We didn't do much this morning, but we did have a barbecue for lunch.
And if you're wondering who that voice is, that's Isabel. Isabel D'Souza is joining us today. Hi there, Isabel. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Well, yeah, I mean, I've been at the beach. How bad can it be, right? So
terrible. Must be terrible.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, we must suffer through. That's the way I look at it. But no, it's been a great day. It was kind of a strange day from a business perspective because we didn't have anything for our gardeners to do. So we figured, well, we'll just make it a 3-day weekend. And so we did. It was good. So I don't really have anything specific to talk about, but I know, Isabel, you were going to perhaps come up with a couple things you like. Did you come up with a list at all?
Yeah, vaguely.
Yeah.
Vaguely.
I don't like to put everything too much down to concrete.
That's all right. No problem.
Fix it in.
Well, I know from my perspective, I'm curious to know, you are growing up with a dad who is very much not only into the law of attraction and the spiritual side of that, but he's a teacher of it. I mean, he'll teach everybody and anybody, including people in a sauna. So, I mean, he probably has a fairly strong influence in that way in your life. And I'm just curious to know, what's it been like from your perspective, growing up, learning the law of attraction from your dad?
Well, the first thing that happened that was like really big was probably the bicycle.
You're not answering the question, if I may step in here. How have I influenced your understanding about the LOA and all the rest of it? Have I been an influence?
Well, if you weren't here, I wouldn't have known about it.
This is true.
We learn from our children, don't we?
We do.
So why don't you go ahead, Isabel? You tell your story your way.
Yeah.
Well, it's been quite interesting because I know quite a lot of my friends' parents, and none of them are like my dad.
He's pretty special, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what if you were to look at it from the perspective of your friends, what's different about growing up with a dad who teaches you how the law of attraction works?
Well, to be honest, they act quite different, but I guess everybody does.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just very different in a way.
In a good way?
Like, yeah. It's just sort of hard to explain.
Sure. Yeah, I understand that. I mean, well, first of all...
Yeah, well, I'm hard to explain, aren't I?
Louis, it took me a year to learn who you are. I mean, seriously. No, it's quite all right because we have also the added difficulty here of trying to explain your parent to somebody else, and I was never able to do that very well, especially with my mom. Trying to explain my mom to somebody else was quite the challenge for me, especially when I was growing up and even later in life. So I understand. I mean, it's difficult. How do you say how your parent is different from somebody else's parent? You say, well, they just are. What else do you want to know? So then let's go on to another question that might be easier for you to handle. You started talking about the bike, which of course we kind of brought up last week. But that's an example of how you started to learn the law of attraction in your own life. You started to apply it. Are there other stories that have popped up in the years since then that kind of reinforce for you what kind of power you really have?
There are probably thousands and thousands that I've not realized.
I know what you mean.
But recently we've been playing this board game, and you have to put down like different tiles. And on one of them, I was thinking, oh, can somebody put down a red 5? And then straight away, it's my mum's turn, and she puts down a red 5.
Yeah, the little things, they are fun, aren't they? Because especially when you get into the vortex and you're in that groove and everything's happening the way you want it to, I mean, it's a great feeling. It's like, how does this stuff work? How does this happen? Even if you understand how it happens, it's magical, isn't it?
You know what I love doing on the board games, Walt, is I sit there and I look around the table and I see who's the happiest here, who's got the highest vibration. And I can almost put my money on it. That person's going to win, you know. And the only time where it's upstage, this is the interesting thing, is when the person is more focused in winning than they are in losing. And that can upstage a happy person, a generally happy person. And that was interesting. And I was sitting there watching that, and it's like, So there's kind of the two factors, the step two, when you're focused on what you want, and the step 3, the kind of like happy-go-lucky person. So you've got those two aspects always kicking in, and you can kind of watch it, and the level of determination somebody's got will just can sometimes quite easily outweigh the happy person.
We've learned over the years that there are a number of different ways that it plays out a little bit differently from what we thought. For instance, we know that somebody who's not in a really high vibe, but they're just driving forward with intensity and belief, they can break through anyway.
Yeah.
But we also know that for you could have two people. One person's kind of the driving force, and that person kind of steps on their own toes so much that the person who has the light background, I'm just feeling so good, that it can work either way. It just depends on really which one's in the higher space or which one's more of the driving force. I mean, I'm not sure how you measure those two, but one can overcome the other and vice versa. It's kind of a strange thing.
And it's interesting because there's many a time where I don't really care if I win or lose. It's quite often my default. And and it'll be very random, the result. Sometimes I'll win and sometimes I'll completely lose, or and all the rest of it. And there's no real consistency to it. And that's kind of what I would expect with that kind of an attitude. And
sure,
it's really interesting. If I win very easily. If I lose pretty easily too. But you can start picking out how it works.
Absolutely.
If and when I lose, I usually just want to play another round so I can redeem myself.
That's a common thing.
Quite understandable. I love the way you phrase that. If and when, you make it sound like it doesn't happen very often.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That was
somebody understands LOA can tend to tip the scales on others.
So that's cool. Any other ways that you routinely like to apply your ability to attract?
Well,
just quickly, Walt. I think we talked about the bike off the podcast, not on the podcast. So probably good for people to hear that.
Oh, well, then tell the story, for goodness sake. Isabel, tell us a story.
So it was when I was around 7-ish.
Yeah.
And I really wanted a bike, so I was telling my mum and dad about it, like, oh, can they get me a bike? And
let me tell you what I said to her, because that's rather important aspect. I said to her, I'm not the person who does your attraction for you, and I will not take on that responsibility in my life. You go out and attract it yourself. And she said, Dad, how do I do that? And I said, you just imagine that you're driving one and having one, and that you've got it now and you're enjoying it. Just go visualize it. Go sit down for a while and do it. And I left her at that.
Is that really what he said?
To be honest, I don't remember, but I do remember that I was really happy when it happened, when I got a bike. So in the first week, my neighbour got a new bike as she had outgrown her last one. She gave her old bike to me.
Nice.
And then in the same month, one of my dad's friends were moving to America, and his daughter's bike didn't fit her anymore, so he gave it to me. So I ended up with two bikes.
And one was slightly bigger than the other.
So you could grow into it. That's cool.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
And then, like, after I nearly didn't fit in it anymore. I didn't ride for like a few, maybe 2-3 years. But then I started to get into bike riding again. I wanted to do it, but I didn't have a bike. Mm-hmm. So I asked my neighbour if I could borrow her sister's bike, and now I keep it in our garage.
As the neighbour's daughter doesn't use it anymore, it's on permanent loan to us. So it's so now she's learned to manifest them without even having the responsibility of owning it.
That's pretty cool. That's quite a skill. It's a good skill to have. I also like the fact that you figured out and experienced that when you attract something, you don't necessarily get it just once. It just keeps coming. It keeps coming and coming.
I think the first one was easier because you just kind of trust Dad and you go do it.
Right.
And then then as it goes on, you're like, nobody else kind of believes this. Why should I believe it? Why is Dad right? And then so it becomes a little bit more difficult as you grow a bit older. So I was really chuffed when you managed to manifest the older one, because I was wondering if you're going to be able to keep the consistency going.
There was another time when I used to use my neighbour's like rollerblades when I was also had around the bike.
Oh.
And then we used to have quite a lot of fun with those. And then like maybe a year ago, I wanted to try rollerblades, and me and Dad went up into the loft because sometimes they get extremely bored. And I like rummaging around in his old pictures and what's up there. And I found a bag, no, I think it was a box with rollerblades in that used to be my dad's sister's, Ingrid's. And now I use them.
And my sister said, yeah, sure, you can have them. So she now has rollerblades.
All right. Yeah, that makes a difference when you are able over and over and over again to not only get what you ask for, but to notice that you're getting what you asked for, to kind of integrate it into your conscious mind. That just really makes an impact. And I can only imagine what that must be like at a young age when that's happening, because I certainly had no awareness of that when I was your age. Does it affect you? Do you feel it? Do you feel like, yeah, I'm really getting this stuff? Like I really can do this?
Yeah. Recently I've been thinking of like a few things that I want. So I just every now and then I'm thinking back on it, like, it would be nice if I had this. Mm-hmm. And so I'm hoping that I will get it somehow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There becomes, after time, as we know, Walt, that you get a greater and greater trust that this is how it works.
Right.
And that trust is so important because you're now seeing the way life works. You know the rules to the game, and you start consciously playing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's delicious because, even my 4-year-old, I want some glasses. I want some glasses, Daddy. I want some sunglasses. I want some sunglasses. I said, well, think about it. Enjoy it. Think about it. Yeah. And I always encourage her to talk about them. What do they look like, etc. So, she loves unicorns and all the rest of it. She's got a unicorn everything.
Mm-hmm.
And, we went to the beach the other day and we were the first people there. And there's this huge open field what we park in, and get out of the car, and there on the ground is a pair of glasses with unicorns on either side of the of the frame.
Nice, very nice.
And you just couldn't believe the perfection of it all. It was just like, wow, spot on. Because I'm teaching a lot of parents as well that they don't have to be the coffers for the child's requirements.
Although, I can tell a story where my parents were in that role, but it wasn't your typical story of here's what I want and I got it for Christmas. It was a different kind of story. This was when I was growing up, so this would be the late 50s, actually the early 1960s. And I was probably about 4 or 5 years old, so that would be 61, 62, something like that. And at the time, I was very fascinated by trains. And it was really exciting to me. I mean, you have to understand, Isabel, this was at a time when the internet did not exist. There was no such thing as a mobile phone. You know, it didn't take a whole lot to excite you because there wasn't a whole lot that went on. You know, so
and train spotting was a big thing.
It was a really big thing, you know, and we would take
family the first trips. Time I heard about train spotting, well, which was about 5 years ago, I was laughing myself silly. Couldn't believe it. I just literally couldn't believe it. So to somebody, what are all those people doing standing on that railway bridge? They're saying, they're waiting for the train. I said, what train? It's like an old train. So why do they want us to look at an old train? I was totally baffled. Yeah, sorry, carry on.
Well, plus here in the U.S., as you probably are aware, everything happens around here by automobile. So to actually have the opportunity to see a train, if you're not near an urban area, or even more to travel on a train, that was exotic. That was just completely out of the realm of possibility. Well, it turned out it wasn't outside of the realm of possibility because we lived in New York and my grandparents lived in Kansas, which was quite a haul. That's a long trip. And so we ended up taking a train to get there, and it was a sleeper style. So we actually got to sleep on the train, which was quite the experience for a 5-year-old and for his 4-year-old sister. We loved it. It was great. And all I could think was, wow, how many other ways can there be trains in my life? I just love these trains. They're so much fun. Mm-hmm. Well, that Christmas, I got the best Christmas gift that I ever remember getting. And I remember that my brother my brother it couldn't have been when I was 4 or 5. It had to be when I was like 5 or 6 because my brother's 4 years younger and he was like 2 years old. So I had to be 6. But we lived in a house where the back staircase had a wall to it. So as you're coming downstairs, you could not see what was downstairs. You had to get to the bottom of the stairs and turn right before you could see what was there. And we had worked our way down the steps on Christmas Day, and our parents had said, okay, you got to stop. You got to wait right there. And we said, why? We want to go open presents. No. You have to wait right there. So we waited right there, and we're waiting, and all of a sudden this sound started up. I said, what is that sound? It's like a metal sound. And then all of a sudden we heard, woo-hoo! What the heck? They finally let us in, and there is a very old-style electric train running around the Christmas tree on this very elaborate track. And I was just flabbergasted because it had never occurred to me. I didn't even know what an electric train was. Mm-hmm. All I knew was I loved trains, and I wanted to have more trains in my life. And here was a train in my house. I loved it. It was great. We played with that thing for years. That thing, my dad had gotten it secondhand, but it was, the old stuff they built to last. This is a train that probably, I don't know who has it now, but whoever has it, I'm sure it still runs fabulously because everything was just so well made. It was wonderful. And it was so great that, and the excitement of that experience of seeing it running around the tree and so forth was so great that every year we would build the railroad train around the Christmas tree. It became part of the family tradition to literally have that train every single year for like the next 5 or 6 years, even though there was nothing new. I mean, we knew it was the same train every time, but it was just reliving that experience. Now, what I did not know was anything about the law of attraction. It wasn't until
years later. You're the vibration unconsciously.
Exactly. That's what I was doing. I just kept reliving this wonderful experience over and over again. And then ironically, it was my younger brother who became the train enthusiast. I lost my enthusiasm. He became the big train enthusiast. And then he got another train of his own, an HO scale one a number of years later. But yeah, we had train experiences when we were growing up.
Yeah, it reminds me of a fascination. My younger daughter, so my 4-year-old, who was a 3-year-old at the time, was absolutely into cars. Everything was cars,
Yeah.
cars. So we're walking back from the crash, and we have a look at this beautiful Lamborghini Countach there, and it's an orange one. And we're both standing there admiring it, and the owner comes up, and he looks at Eloise, who's obviously very enthusiastic about it, and he says to her, "Would you like to sit in the car?" So she says, yeah. So he opens this 300,000 Lamborghini Countach and says, "Yeah, sit in the car." And she goes and sits in the car, and I was like, wow, what a manifestation story that
Right.
is.
No kidding. Yeah.
Every time we see the orange Lamborghini driving around, it's like, "Ooh, you sat in that one. You sat in that one." She says to me, "Did I, Dad? I don't remember."
She doesn't remember. Yeah, that's the thing when you're that young.
Oh,
I'm
that's quite
surprised
funny.
she doesn't remember. She's always saying, "Oh, when I was 3, I did this or that."
Yeah, she's got a good memory for some things.
I think that's true for all
I
of
don't
us, really.
think she realized the magnitude of it at the time. It was just
You know,
fun.
there's that too. I mean,
Yeah.
unless you understand what kind of a machine a Lamborghini is and what kind of expense goes into it and so forth, it probably doesn't have quite the same impact as
It was only like 3 months old as well.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. Yep. So that stuff is cool. So any other stories that you can think of, Isabel, that come to mind about how you've been learning this stuff?
Well,
and
I was
applying
trying
it?
to point out to Isabel that many of it comes from the simple statement, when you know what you don't want, you have a better idea what you do want. And she's also often very good at helping her friends who are, not so happy or not going through a good time. Because she understands the idea of raising the vibrations. I don't know if you want to tell any stories like that.
To be honest, I don't remember them that much.
Okay.
But you recognize what he's talking about. That
Yeah.
sounds right. What do you say
Yeah,
to them?
I do
mean, do you
recognize.
actually say you need to raise your vibration, or do you say it in a different way? How
Oh,
do you
no.
Like, how would you
I
explain
usually
it?
say, I don't exactly explain it. I just try to get their mind off what they don't want and try to get them to do something fun or just take their mind off it and try to raise their vibration.
That's a good strategy. Yeah. Because that way
Redirection,
you don't have to explain anything. You just kind of do it.
Yeah, no, there's not much explaining. It's not very appropriate at that time. It's to explain to people who do not understand the law of attraction that they need to raise their vibration and go from depression to rage. And
Yeah, right. Climb the scale.
It's not going to quite work. But my daughter, the younger one, I'm often teasing her, but I mentioned this before that she's "Oh, my dad, my saw," and I'll say, "Well, don't worry, we'll cut it out." It's like, no, don't cut it out.
He said that so many times that whenever he says it, she gets really mad.
Uh-oh.
Which is great because it takes her attention off the problem. But and then I'm trying to change it. I say, "Isn't the eye better now? Isn't this better now?" And she'll begrudgingly say, "Yeah." But I do make sure that I'm also raising the vibration after that as much as possible, but or redirecting as Isabel does, because I find with the younger children, redirection is very powerful. It's one of the most useful tools I've ever used. Is just to take the attention off one thing and put it on another, and then take that thing and raise the vibration of that.
Well, I find the same thing works with adults, too. I mean, as long as you aren't making it obvious that you're trying to redirect their attention, it's pretty easy to redirect an adult's attention.
The way I prefer working with adults is to teach them LOA.
Well, I know.
Then they can redirect it themselves, and they've got control themselves. So it's that is very much my passion, is rather empowering people and not to be, I was quite fascinated because I really hated the idea of going to a chiropractor or one of those guys who twist your back into place, chiropractors.
Oh.
Yeah.
No idea what those are.
You don't know what they are now, hopefully. Not yet.
You're not the only one. I've never gone to a chiropractor for anything chiropractic, so You're not the only one.
I liked them, and they did the job.
Mm-hmm.
But I always found I went back to the old problem, and I was getting annoyed with the idea that I wasn't getting fixed permanently or long term. I was getting fixed short term wise.
Mm-hmm.
And then a friend of mine said, so, I found Egoscue, and that teaches you to do the exercise yourself, and I aligned myself beautifully, and I've still got the Egoscue stuff, and I still use it occasionally if I need to, but, I went to an Egoscue guy 3 times, and that was because my body had aligned, and I wanted the new menu, and then there's a line from the new menu, and I went to the 3rd time, and because I'd referred so many people to this guy, I've still got about 5 or 6 free lessons with him, but I just don't need them anymore. So, I love them because I love what he did for me, because he allowed me to empower myself. So I said to this one lady, I don't like chiropractic for this reason, or osteos. And they said to me, well, there is another side to it. And I said, oh, what's that? And she said to me that, I really enjoy going there. I find it fun. And I want somebody else to fix me now and again. And I thought, that's what a lot of people do want. That's how it works.
It's right. It's
I was so
exactly
far away from that I
right.
didn't actually see that this is actually how it is for most people.
It's true. It's very true.
Yeah, it was true. It was true. I have to appreciate that aspect as well, that some people need and want that. And that's what they will, and that's why they have a profession, and that's why they work quite well.
Now, I stated that I never, go ahead, Isabel.
It's just that it isn't really about law of attraction, but I did find this quite amusing. So I haven't done it in a few days, but I was doing a bit of editing, trying to get used to an app.
Okay.
And so I did 2. One, I put Dad in front of his dream car at the moment.
Ooh, very
My
nice.
next dream car.
And the next one, I put Eloise in front behind a massive unicorn. And when I showed her, she was like, I don't remember having that.
No, because you're going to get it.
That's funny. So that's a pre-LOA, or that's a pre-manifestation LOA story.
Well, that's a vision board concept. So
right.
she's taking a picture of me and then editing out all the back, so there's nothing there, and then taking the car and mixing the car with me in it, and then I like doing that. I like vision board concepts and things like that.
Oh, me too.
But
I like that they come up with apps that can make that kind of thing accessible to everyday people. Because, I used to do that for a living, believe it or not. Back in the day when I worked for an advertising agency, I used special software that, nobody else could get in order to accomplish that. Now anybody can do it. It's like, holy.
Now you can do it on your phone in 2 seconds.
Yeah, really. It's crazy.
I know. It's really amazing what we can do now. I was trying to explain to my daughter that in the old days, really old days, there were hunters and there were the gatherers, and the hunters just had a stick to hit things over the head with, to drag back to the cave and heat up, and the gatherers just picked grain or whatever it is, and that's how they literally used to live in a long time ago, and it wasn't that easy for you to pretty much grasp, I think, in the beginning.
That's okay.
It's
it's
a very different world.
I never really got the whole idea of hunters and gatherers. I understood what they were trying to say about it, but I said to myself, what is that world actually like? And I never could picture it, never could imagine.
Yeah. There was a great book I read when I was younger. Oh, it was absolutely brilliant. What's it called now?
No idea.
Oh, it's very, 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 very famous. Very famous. I will think about it, but it's a brilliant, brilliant book, brilliant story. She made about 6 of them, but I think the first 2 are okay. The first one is brilliant, but the rest don't quite do it. But once you're in the first one, you can really appreciate the second one, because it is leaning on the strength of the first one. But if I think about it, I'll tell you, because it really is worth a read, a light read. but it really has depth in it as well.
What
Really
was
has.
what was the big takeaway? I mean, from the one that was brilliant, what was the big thing that just made you remember it and remember it and remember it?
Well, it was a clan, kind of cave clan, but they had a spiritual level to them where they used to drink this stuff and trip out and go into astral world and all the rest of it. But they were so tribal, yet they had this whole aspect of being able to go into the future and the past and check things out and all the rest of it. And it was done.
It sounds like you're talking about the Clan of the Cave Bear.
Yes, it is the Clan of the Cave Bears.
Okay.
That's it. Yeah. I loved that. I absolutely loved it.
Mm-hmm.
As I say, specifically the Clan of the Cave Bears, but not the second or the third one. The others were okay, but not anywhere as good as that first one. John DeLow was the guy, was it girl? Can't remember. Yeah. But, you really got a feel of what it was like in those days and when the clans met up and the bear and all that stuff. It was just really fun. And
I often ask
it's an
myself,
exciting book. It left such a clear vision in my mind of the whole story.
Mm-hmm. I often ask
love
myself,
that.
as I explore LOA concepts and as I explore this stuff with you guys here on the show, I often ask myself, like, what would it have been like to have known this stuff, generations ago? And we do know that there are people who did seem to understand it. There are people who have actually written about it in one way or another. But they were very few and far between. Most people, for most situations, it was not part of their daily life in any way. Certainly not to the extent that it is for people today. And I wonder about that. I wonder what it must have been like to have a grasp of this and not be able to explain it to anybody else for fear you'd be burned at the stake as a witch or something. I mean, just because it was just so far out there. Have you ever thought about that?
I think, that these guys were aware enough to create a safe haven, some of the time, that they could create a whole group of people, a whole band of followers that were not going to be prosecuted. And I'm sure that happened out there. But as those people went and tried to convert the people in the cities, etc., I think a lot of them suffered a lot. But I think there were guys, from the way I'm looking at the many books that I've read, that they were able, just using LOA, I imagine, to create the safe havens, even though they were temporal. Yeah.
Well,
that's just a thought.
Okay, that's good. I'm curious, can you think of an example?
Well, Milarepa was one of them. During different phases of famous philosophers in our past, it was fascinating. I was reading the death of Socrates, and that was horrendous and beautiful at the same time. It was just like, oh my God. This guy's dying and talking about how he's dying and what he's feeling and all the rest of it, and quite accepting of the whole process. And it's just like, oh my God, taking poison and killing. And he could have got out of it. All he had to do is leave, go to another area, and he could have been saved. But he decided to stick by his belief and his philosophy and got himself killed. But, before that, he had quite a strong following and all the rest of it, and was able to do what he wanted. And it was only at a certain stage when certain people had gotten, and it was really just businessmen who wanted to get their own way by the looks of it.
That's largely true.
It's usually the case.
Yeah, often.
So it's. I mean, Milarepa was amazing story. I mean, probably one of the most amazing saintly type stories that you will ever likely to hear. I don't know if you know much about Milarepa.
I know very, very little. I know that Milarepa was Tibetan, but beyond that, I don't know a whole lot about them. Buddhist, but
Milarepa was brought up in a family, and Dad died, and because Dad died, uncles and aunts and all the rest of it, the males, took away their property.
Wow.
Because she was a female,
right.
And literally it was just a social thing. Sorry, mate, the males died, we'd take everything away from you. So they left them with nothing, and the mother was very, very angry. So she brought up her son to study black magic.
Mm-hmm.
And he became exceptionally good at it.
Mm-hmm.
He brought locusts down on their fields, and he was taught to hate, the family and all the rest of it. And he could bring storms and all other kinds of things, and he just wiped them out in many different ways. But he got to a stage where he didn't want to hurt or destroy anymore, and he wanted to gain enlightenment. So he went to a guru. And he said to him, "Teach me." And the guy said, "No, I won't. Go away." And he came back again and again. And eventually the guy said to him, "Okay, build me a house here with rocks." And Tibet's like. So he built him a house. And then the guru said, no, I wanted 3 feet over there. Destroy it and move it.
This is a chain yanking yoga or guru here, rather.
So he destroyed the whole thing again and moved it. And then when he had built it, the guru said to him, no, I want it over there, like 10 meters away. And eventually, after many, many years of building this third one, the guru still didn't want him, so he kicked him out. And he got along pretty well with the wife of the guru, and she was always trying to help him and support him. And it's a long, complicated story, but basically he left, and that building, which he had built 3 times, is still there today. So you can go see Milarepa's temple, or whatever you want to call it, house.
Wow.
Whatever. It still exists. And he went up to a cave and sat in the lotus position, and all that was really in this cave was a bush, a little tree in front of him. And he just meditated, and as he meditated in the evening and the nights, the animals used to come and lie on top of him and keep him warm.
Oh, wow.
And the green bush, he ate the leaves off that, and literally he was skin and bones, and he was green.
He was green.
He was green. Totally green. Yeah, because all he was eating was leaves off this tree, and they were green, so he became green. So some shepherds found him one day, and they said, "Oh my God, look, what's this thing?" And he had become incredibly enlightened at that stage, and he could physically move his body anywhere he wanted to. He could be in multiple places at once. And his sister came to him and started feeding him bowls of rice, which he kind of kept going for months on end, eating 1 grain of rice a day or something.
Oh,
and his sister said to him, "Go down to the monastery, go teach them there." And he said, no, I don't really want anything to do with these guys. But the bottom line is he eventually built his own ashram, and he taught for many, many years, many, many, many people, very enlightened stuff that wasn't really linked to Tibetan Buddhism or anything. It was just, his stuff that he had learned, and that he had become enlightened on. And they say he could run literally 1 step, and then he could fly through the air for like 20 steps, and then put his foot down, and then go for another 10. And then that's quite a common thing in Tibet that some of the gurus can do there. So he could do that as well. But he could do many things. But when he died, it was quite fascinating because he had this ashram and all the students, and pretty much every single student that was in the ashrams said at the moment of his death that Milarepa was with them. So they were all arguing, "No, he was with me, he was with me, he was with me." Because he had split himself into all these different parts of himself, and he was with all his students at the same time as he died. And the moment he died, flowers rained from the sky. And, this is reported by many of his students, that just the skies just started raining flowers.
Crazy.
What can you say? But,
well, if it's going to rain something, it might as well be flowers. Something, fragrant and light, and it hits your skin. It doesn't hurt. I'm sure flowers are okay with me.
Exactly. But, there's few stories like that and it's quite old, but, to go from a black magician to being, kicked out by a master who he really believed would help him, and he would have. He could have, but he chose not to, gaining his enlightenment pretty much by himself. and then creating his kind of own environment where he taught people. Yeah, it's really quite an amazing story when you read some of the students who've written books, would have been translated, etc. It's quite fun.
So, Isabel, I got to ask you. I mean, I imagine you may have heard that story before from your father, even if you haven't.
Yes, I have.
Have you? Okay. So you have had some time to kind of think about it a bit. What do you think of that story? Do you believe that story, first of all? And if you do, what impact, what impression does it have on you?
Some part of me says it's real, like most of it. But then there's a tiny bit that's just like, this is so amazing. Is it really real?
Yeah, there's always that doubt, isn't there?
I mean, there's even doubt in my mind, and, if I hadn't known masters in this day and age that are currently alive that have been known to be in multiple places at once, I probably wouldn't have. I've done a lot of study of the gurus, and one of the things that's quite common is what they call bilocation, which is to be at least in two places at once. It's not such a far concept. You can start understanding how you can be in the astral realm with somebody else at the same time, and then if you are aware enough, you can probably split yourself into a few different parts. It doesn't seem that difficult in my mind. And the difficulty that I have is having those bodies materialize so that they look physical, or get the student to raise their vibration to the degree to which they can perceive or see them, which I'm not sure which way around it happens, but that's the kind of perception I have of the whole bilocation aspect.
I don't know. It sounds an awful lot like Lord Voldemort from the Harry Potter series, so I'm a little bit skeptical that that.
So where do you think that comes from? Hey,
interesting point. Of course, we know what happens to the Harry Potter story. I mean, it basically obliterates him when they kill off all the pieces of him. So it's not all that attractive, but
yeah. But So I remember once I was talking to a spiritual dude, but he was very Christian. And I said to him, I believed in past lives. And he said something very fascinating to me. He said, Louis, as long as you believe that this is the most important life, that's all that matters.
The most important life. Yeah, that's true. I'll buy that.
And I looked at that from his point of view. So he only believes in one life. Mm-hmm. And he's trying to point out that I mustn't lean on the past lives, and that I must make sure that this one's the most important one. And I said, hey, cool. I can get behind that. Yeah. And it was a fascinating concept. So, yeah, I don't know why I brought that up. There was a specific reason linking to the previous conversation, but I think I've lost it now. But I really
to do with
like
Lord
that.
Voldemort. I have no idea.
Yeah, so this weekend, a lady said to me, Louis, come here, I want to speak to you. And she might well be listening because she listens to the podcast.
Oh, okay.
And she
Was
said,
I there?
Yes. No, you weren't. You weren't at Carlisa's.
Oh, it was at Khalees.
She said to me, Louis, I've, she's been looking at the law of attraction and all the rest of it. And she said to me, look what this guy did. It was quite amazing. He went on the internet, started a website that puts clouds, and,
That's what?
Clouds. Took a photograph of clouds.
Oh.
Yeah.
Cool.
And the guy charges $25 for the cheap subscription, and then you can send your photos in and he'll post them. Or you can go the 50, and I don't know what it's for, a year or a month or whatever, but she worked out that this guy must be close to a millionaire because he creates a website where he puts up photos of the clouds. And she was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Anybody can do this. Anybody can. And I said to her, there's probably something that you haven't quite noticed yet, or maybe you have. I said to her that this guy probably loves clouds. She said, yes, you can really feel it and see it. This guy loves clouds. And I said, so this is why the money's coming easily to him.
Yes.
It's coming easily because he's following his passion.
That's a big deal. Because without that passion, you don't have anything. With that passion is what makes stuff happen. And I'm still learning that, to be honest. I mean,
but it's the ease with which he's making money is because of the level of passion that he has for his clowns.
Yeah.
And I was trying to point that aspect out because it's a really important aspect to understand. The following your bliss, it's quite a common self-development cliche thing that they throw around, but it's really true. It really is the way it works, Follow what you love. And, there are ways of making money out of it if you want to. If you can just keep clear about the money coming in, then it can happen. It can really happen quite easily. And it doesn't have to be a long, hard journey. I think this guy did this in a very short period of time. And you like taking photos. There's an idea for you.
Yeah. There's a guy that I saw on TikTok, and he was taking pictures of animals, and he does that all around the world because he also travels. So I find that because I love animals, I like photography, and I want to travel the world.
See? We can make it happen. Isabel's already thinking of making a little group of dog walking little enterprise, so we'll see how that pans out.
Yeah.
A dog walking enterprise, really?
Yeah, I got a bunch of her friends that she's created the idea of, taking dogs for a walk and making some money out of it. So, it's just a small thing, and it's something that is plausible and feasible for age, etc. So I'll let her run with it and see what she wants to create with it. And, if and when I'm needed, I may help.
One of the authors that influenced me when I was growing up was a science fiction author named Robert Heinlein, who some of our listeners may know about.
Robert Island?
Heinlein, Heinlein, Heinlein.
Cool.
And Heinlein wrote a lot of stories. He included some spiritual stuff in his stories, too, which was kind of groundbreaking in a science fiction venue, so to speak. But one of those stories was sort of a collection of stories, and that particular story in the collection was about a guy who, as a kid, started a service called Walk Your Dog. And Walk Your Dog, he kept going with it and growing it and adding to it, and it eventually became a major corporation. So,
wow.
I'm just saying, he just kept following what he wanted to do. He kept following what he loved. I mean, it was a very LOA type story. So
that's a very LOA appropriate to Isabel's story for her now.
Yeah, no kidding. So, I mean, I'm not saying that you may find that dog walking is not all that big of a deal and not all that interesting to you, and that's fine. That's perfectly acceptable. But just on the off chance that it turns out you really love it, stay with it. You never know where it's going to turn into. It could turn into stuff that just goes beyond your wildest dreams.
Yeah, Isabel loves animals, and is very good with them. So, yeah.
Oh, I haven't told you about Daisy's cat yet.
Oh, yeah. Tell us about it.
Basically, my neighbor is looking after one of her family's cats, and his name is Sunny. He's quite nice, if I'm being honest, except he's a bit nervous in the house, and he can scratch a little sometimes.
And what's the point?
They're known for that.
Oh, no. I was recently I've been I really want a cat. And it's just like more cats are coming around me. So.
Ah, yes. That's a big part of manifestation, isn't it? Because in the early stages, they start to come more into your life. They may not ultimately yet be in your life. They may not have arrived yet, but you start seeing them everywhere, right? I'll bet you the same thing happened with
my Jaguar.
Yeah.
And we were seeing Jaguars everywhere.
We saw this metal-coloured one.
Yeah, recently,
Recently.
Gunmetal Jaguar, which is unusual.
That's
I haven't
very
really
unusual.
seen those before. I saw two of them right after each other. So we've been looking at the 4x4 Jaguar, the F-Pace, and really quite enjoying that. So seeing loads of those. And, it took me years. I mean, it was 2 or 3 years when I was thinking about looking at, I'm just going to choose an arbitrary car. What cars are very rare around here? Okay, Jaguar. And that's how I started.
That's how you started, really? Wow.
That's how it started. And, I remember I told you why I chose Jaguars, because it was in a James Bond movie, and I used to love spies and James Bond movies and things. So it was a James Bond movie that got me onto Jaguar, and Jaguar was chosen for the LOA experiment because it was rare in the area.
Mm-hmm.
And now I think it's probably one of the most common cars, and I think my wife and I are to blame because we were focusing so much on these cars, and I think we've improved sales in this area. I promise you, I really think from an OA perspective that we have increased the sales in this area a lot. And now we've got the Jag, and we're looking at next cars, because now once you've manifested one, you just feel it's easy to manifest more and more and more in different ways. And it's the way it works, just the way it works. It becomes easier to see the bigger things which you wouldn't have believed before. It just becomes easier and easier.
I have to ask you, if it was an association with James Bond that made you want the Jaguar, have you ever wanted to have an Aston Martin? Because that's the other car associated with him.
Not at all.
Not at all.
The shape doesn't appeal to me, so that has a factor. The Jaguar shape really appeals to me.
Well, it's a very sporty-looking car.
My wife always wanted the 4x4, and I wasn't that happy with the shape. I really like the sedan. To me, that is a typical Jaguar. That's what it should look like. Mm-hmm. And I didn't like the old Jaguar, the old man Jaguar. That just doesn't appeal to me at all. So it was the current kind of version which I like. And just manifested it. It was so easy, as I've mentioned before. My wife found it while she was doing night shift. She came in the morning and said, "Oh, look at this car. It's a reasonable price. It's only $30K on the clock." And we drove down that morning, and in the old car, that pretty much broke down just on the way there.
Really?
Well, the gears wouldn't shift. You have to put the foot on the brake for an automatic to move the gears, and it wouldn't shift. And I was praying to it, just to get into gear, just get into gear one last
time, just for old time's sake.
And we've never had a problem with that ever before, ever.
Oh, that's fine.
Ever.
And as soon as we're going to get a new car.
And then it just moved into gear, luckily after about my 100th try. Drove it to the place, parked it there, and they gave us $100 for it, for our old car.
All right.
Trade-in value. Cheaper than getting somebody to take it away.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then we drove away in a Jaguar after leaving our old car.
And then he picked me up at school.
And then I picked you up at school with it, yeah.
I was very surprised, if I'm being honest.
Who's the stranger peeping at us? Huh?
Yeah, I was like, why is that car beeping at us? And then I realized it was you, and I'm like, oh my god, you got the Jaguar.
I wanted to surprise us. I pick her up from school.
Yeah, that's a bit of a shock. Especially when you're expecting
a beautiful red color.
Yeah, I really like the red.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of maroony color, and it's gorgeous. Mm-hmm. Absolutely gorgeous.
And it's a bit metallic too.
It's just, a little bit. Yeah, metallic red.
A bit glittery as well.
Yeah. It's got a lovely sheen to it. It's in the sun. It's beautiful. When it's not so bright, it's a little bit on the dark side, but as soon as there's a little bit of sun around, it's gorgeous.
I don't know if you realize what we're doing here, but each time that you guys have told a story, and I told one too, we stretched it out. Like you said before, we milked it. And you were just milking it one more time. You just kept milking huge amounts of appreciation of the experience of it.
There's so many aspects of that car, that I still so appreciate. I never dreamt that the appreciation aspect of seeing it, going into it, every time we've had it for about a year now already. Can you believe that?
I thought it was 2 years.
No, not 2. It's only 1.
About a year.
And there's just so many aspects I just love about it. I just absolutely love it. The keyless entry, the way the rear view mirrors tilt down when you reverse, the way the water for the windscreen wiper doesn't shoot out from those normal little vents in the front. It's actually inside the strip that goes forward and back. So it's just a little bit of water is needed.
Huh.
And the water tank doesn't empty as fast.
Sure.
So, I think even in a year, I have never filled it up yet. Except with maybe some de-ice, a little
Question,
bit of
do you like when it locks the doors automatically when you're in the car.
Yeah, you're driving along, and after you hit a certain speed, the doors automatically lock. And I just love it. It's just everything about the car is gorgeous, gorgeous. I suppose there's the contrast appreciation of the old car. I didn't have a lot of it, although it was an automatic. It had power steering. It had automatic windows. You know, it had a lot of things, but it was just didn't have a couple of the extras. And you know, the Jaguar has it, and in masses.
And that goes to what you were talking about before. I mean, you were talking about it in terms of pursuing a career that you love, that you're passionate about. But it's also about attracting bikes and Jaguars, and it's all of the things that we love so much. When we appreciate them, it takes the passion to a new level that just keeps building and building that vortex.
Do you know what happened to me recently? Actually, I saw somebody put on. Relax,
see what it is.
Bulb. So I saw on Law of Attraction Change My Life group, some lady put down. She said, "You know what I've noticed?" And I was so excited when I read this, and it's rare I read some of those and get excited.
Very diplomatically said, I must say.
That's trying to put it as nice as possible. Still love you guys. But
Comments.
yeah, this lady put down that she had noticed that her vibration had changed so much that she had lost some of her old friends and new ones were being drawn into her life. But it's the way she worded it, and it is exactly how I would have worded it. And it was
How
just,
did she word it?
I don't know. I'd have to go and have a look. I can't remember. I read it about an hour ago. It's gone out of my head.
Can you see it?
You want to have a look at the group, you can try find it.
Well, actually, the way you said it was a pretty good way of saying it. You know, if you really feel it, and that's what the phrase that you used did, it expressed that feeling. If you really feel it, then you've got it. You found the best way to express it. That feeling is what really needs to come through. And so it almost doesn't matter what she said. If it felt like what you said, then it was right. Anyway, we are running out of time here.
I need time already.
I need to make sure that I alert people who have not yet considered doing this. I think most people have considered this by now because I say it so often. But if you have not considered sharing that LOA Today app and sharing with other people about the show, this is a good time to do it. We want more and more people to, talk about dreams, Louis. I mean, my passion is doing this podcast. And my dream is for this thing to just keep growing and growing and growing until we're reaching millions of listeners, you know. So that's why I keep putting out this promo that says, please share, please share, please share. Tell a friend to tell a friend. You know, so please do tell a friend. Tell a friend about the LOA Today app. Give them the link. It's in most of the descriptions for these episodes. And, share the fact that everybody else can get their daily dose of happy. I am getting more and more emails, Louis, day by day from people saying they love getting their daily dose of happy, that it just makes a big difference. In fact, last week on Wednesday, Cindy was caught up in a hurricane that was coming through her area, so she couldn't do a show. And then on Thursday, we had kind of a glitch, so that didn't work out. So 2 days in a row, we had no shows. And one of our listeners, Barbie, wrote in practically angry, like, you can't take away my daily dose of happy. Keep sending the episodes. She said, well, I can kind of understand Wednesday because Cindy couldn't be.
I read that comment.
But Thursday was completely unacceptable. Which is kind of a nice backhand way of saying she appreciates it. She likes having that good feeling. So, share the feeling is what I'm saying. Let more and more people get in on the act because it does feel good to have that daily dose of happy. And speaking of happy, I'm really happy, Isabel, that you joined us today and shared some of your stories and shared your perspective about your dad. It's kind of fun because we got to listen to how the two of you interact. But thank you for taking the time. We appreciate that.
It was very nice being here. I will come again.
Good. Well, that's what we like to hear. That's fabulous. And Louis, as always, your insights, actually, there's an interesting thing. Your insights are always very high level. Today, I think perhaps because of the influence of having your daughter here, you had a level of just gentle clarity that was beautiful. So just something.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you.
Saying, just saying. So thank you very much, guys. And Amy, of course, will be back with us next week, so we're looking forward to that. Thank you very much to our podcast listeners. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Cheers, everyone.
Bye.